Howdy there, partner. Last time I saw yous around these parts, I was talking about how in this here game, there are certain civs that I prefer. However, this time round, I'ma tell you about how there are certain civs that I don't exactly prefer. And so, in today's here video, we're gonna talk about my top 5 least favorite civs in Age of Empires 1 Definitive Edition. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. Starting off with number 5 here, we got the Babylonians. These bad boys have an emphasis on towers and walls because they got them nice and juiced up. They also have faster rejuvenating priests, but I don't really care. They have a good swordsman line, they have heavy horse archers, and they got good catapults. But personally, here in this house, we like heavy horse archers. So, not good enough. Throw them out. They have good fortifications, though. And they are only missing iron and tower shields in their tech tree for the storage pit, which is a pretty good storage pit. They also got nice market techs, nice government center techs. Their fleet sucks, though. They don't even have triremes. They got fire galleys. I tried using those bad boys once, and they burned through those triremes like it was nothing. But it was only the front line, and they all died. Meh. I don't really hate them, though. Moving on to number 4. We got the Choson. These guys have a cool buff for their infantry that gives them an additional 80 HP. Not to be confused with ADHD. Not sure if that's a buff. Anyways, they also have cheaper storage pit techs, which would be amazing if they weren't missing a whole bunch of them, which essentially makes their 40% off look like it's worthless to me. They also have increased tower range, and their priests are cheaper. They got a good swordsman line, obviously, with those buffs. And they do have horse archers, but they don't have the heavy horse archer. They have Heliopolis. Overall, they aren't like the worst in terms of technology or in terms of units. They got a fair amount of options, and that's a pretty big reason for why I don't hate this civilization. But again, infantry isn't really my play. I prefer to go with the horse archer, which this civilization has. And it also has its own Heliopolis, which I'm very partial to, so, it seems like a halfway decent civ. It's just not really my play style. In the meantime, their fortifications are about all you could ask for in this department, with them having the ballista tower, which is absolutely overpowered. They also have, just like the Babylonians, a maxed out priest line. But unlike the Babylonians, they got the cheap buff, while the Babylonians have got the rejuvenating buff. Also, unlike the Babylonians, they have the trireme, which makes their fleet actually usable. So, not as bad as the Babylonians, if you ask me, but not too amazing. Next up, in number 3, we got the Minoans, another civilization I dislike but don't really hate. Minoans here have got nice, cheap ships with a 30% off buff for them. They also got increased range, composite bowmen, and they have increased food for their farmers. In terms of their technology, though, they aren't exactly the greatest. Their swordsman line has upgrades all the way up to the Iron Age, but they are lacking the final upgrade, leaving their swordsmen being very subpar. Their archer range I would also consider subpar, with the best unit in there being the composite bowman, which has the additional buff of +2 range, which is very powerful. But the thing is, composite bowman I consider to be more or less a trash unit, albeit by far my favorite trash unit. So I'm very biased to this, but still, I think it's a bad archery range. But not unusable. I'm sure there's some situations where it could be useful. Their Siege Workshop is completely maxed out, with them having every unit in it and every upgrade. Well, I don't know about every upgrade for it, but every single unit in it. And that's like all I care for, which makes them have an amazing Siege Workshop. I love that. Their stable is very subpar, with the best unit in there, I would say, being the Camel Rider, since that unit has a specific function through all the ages. While in the meantime, their cavalry just remains subpar after the Bronze Age. They also have all the way up to Centurions, so Centurions seem to be the infantry play for this Civ. All things considered, their tech tree is okay, but again, not exactly my forte. Next up, though, we got to talk about fortifications, which is a big part of what I like. This civilization. Hey, where are you going? I was talking about that. Anyways, as I was saying, this civilization's fortifications are trash, with them stopping their upgrades at the What the frick? Whatever. As I was saying, their upgrades for the fortifications completely stop in the Bronze Age, making their fortifications trash. In the meantime, their priests are also basically trash, with them only having 2 upgrades. Their fleet's good, though, with them having triremes and juggernauts. Now, let's move on to number 2, the first of the civilizations I actually hate in this game. The Greeks. Now, that might seem a bit weird, considering that these bad boys pack 2 of my favorite units in the game, the Heliopolis and the Centurion. But what you gotta understand is that they suck everywhere else but in the siege and heavy infantry department. Firstly, their barracks it's not even good beyond the Tool Age, because they don't even have full Bronze Age upgrades for their swordsmen. Their archery range is a disgrace, with them only having bowmen to train, which means they're worthless as soon as you get to the Bronze Age, except to get the Siege Workshop, which is actually good. Again, this is a maxed out Siege Workshop, and yeah, I really like that. Their stable is also pretty much a disgrace as well, with them only having 1 actually usable unit, and it's the cavalry line, which isn't upgradable to the max and only goes to heavy cav, which isn't too terrible, but I mean, it's not that great. It's just subpar. Not nearly as bad as the barracks or the archery range, but obviously this isn't a cavalry civilization. Um, However, what their real special unit is here is their Centurion. This particular unit, for the Greeks, this is where their buffs come in. Their Centurions are, I think, yeah, 20% cheaper, that is a pretty significant reduction in costliness, considering the Centurion is supposed to be super expensive. And the normally very slow unit is actually quite fast by comparison, thanks to their 30% speed buff by the Greeks, which makes Centurions, for the Greeks, an actual serious threat. And I would hesitate to call the Centurions worthless. Honestly, I think some of the only units that can actually outspeed this, like significantly enough for me to feel comfortable kiting, would be the Chariot Archers and the Heavy Horse Archers. Obviously, there's no kiting with melee cavalry. So, but like, you would be stupid to engage in melee combat with a Centurion unless you outnumber it, because those bad boys, they're kind of broken. So, I really just dislike how much they just lack other options. Their own playstyle, though, is great. They heavily lean into it, and personally, if that was my playstyle, I would love it. Because they really have some good buffs there. In terms of their other technology, it's pretty respectable. They got the full fortifications play with ballista towers and fortified walls, so that's something I can definitely go for. Their priests are also pretty decent, with them having multiple upgrades, although they're missing monotheism, zealotry, which is trash if you ask me, and they're also missing sacrifice, which I don't even know how to use, man. But one thing they do have that's good is they have the whole fleet. They got like everything on the docks. That is amazing. Like, dude, makes me jealous. Not to mention these bad boys get a 20% speed increase. Makes me jealous of this civilization having such good fleets. In the meantime, let's move on to number 1, the Egyptians. I feel like this is probably uncontested. Well, maybe not really. I mean, I feel like almost nobody in the game really likes the Egyptians as their favorite civilization because the Egyptians suck. I mean, they got a whole bunch of nice little bonuses here. They got like higher HP for their chariot units. They got better range for their priests, and they got buffed gold miners, and they do have cheaper farms, which are all good buffs, but their tech tree is just garbage. Firstly, their barracks is just as bad as the Greeks' barracks. They literally stop in the same place as the Greeks. They do have everything in the Bronze Age in their archery range. They got the chariot archers, they got the composite bowmen. So their archery range is pretty respectable. And actually, they do have an alternate unit for the Iron Age, the elephant archer. My trouble with these is that these guys are super expensive, but they are highly tanky and very dangerous when they're massed. And they are I hear they're a very good team game unit. Very good for team games. But considering my realm is generally just 1 versus 1 combat, I don't find it all that useful, and honestly, I kind of really dislike them when they're massed. Their siege workshop is literally a disgrace, with them only having stone throwers, meaning they don't have any new units in there for the Iron Age. That is just sad. Their stables are a little better, with them having camel riders to counter cavalry, scythe chariots with their area damage, and they have war elephants, but they don't even have armored elephants, which, in my opinion, makes that pretty crappy. And their academy is also a disgrace, with them only having the hoplite. So all things considered, they have a very significant lack of options once you get to the final age. They have elephant archers, which are good. They're a respectable option, but in the end game, their only options really are elephant archer, scythe chariot, and war elephant. Except in I guess probably camel rider is an option. I didn't really think about that. So basically, they only have 4 options to go for, other than their priests, which I'll get to in a minute. But first, let's talk about their fortifications. In the meantime, their fortifications aren't bad, actually. They do have ballista towers, which is, they basically have everything I care about there. And then we get to talk about their priests and their fleet. Let's talk about the fleet first. Their fleet's great. They got triremes, juggernauts. That's really all I care for. I mean, personally, I don't even care for juggernauts. And then we get to talk about the actual thing, the actual elephant in the room, beyond the actual elephants that are literally in their tech tree. Their priests are, again, maxed out, like a couple other civs that we talked about in this video, but their priests have additional range. If you watched my video on my bottom 5 least favorite units that I hate the most in this game, you'll know that the priest was number 1 on that list. I hate the priest. It is so incessantly annoying. And the Egyptians crank up what I hate about the priest to an 11, giving the priest absurd levels of range on top of the fact that it's already an absurdly annoying unit. If I remember right, I once decided to straight up priest spam a game, and I basically ruined my enemy just by converting his units. I kid you not. I just trained a whole bunch of priests and gathered them into groups, and I just en masse converted this guy's military. And it was a freaking massacre. I killed his economy. It was terrible, man. Like, these priests are, so freaking overpowered. And honestly, though, I do think mass increase is probably a terrible idea, because in a player versus player game, it's probably going to get you killed. It's just, priests are so expensive. But again, this seems like really their focus. Honestly, I feel like the Egyptians are meant to be a more Bronze Age civilization, because in Bronze Age they would definitely be powerful. They have a lot of options there. But once you get to Iron Age, I feel like the Egyptians kind of feel like a subpar and pretty bad civilization, and is not only not my forte, but it's just I really hate playing as a civilization with its limits and with its playstyle. By far, I dislike them more than the Greeks. Alright, so that's going to conclude our video on my bottom 5 least favorite civilizations in Age of Empires 1 Definitive Edition. I'm gonna be for real, this list was kind of tricky to create. So was the last one, because the reality is I always like to play a random civ, so I kind of just go with the flow. Also, as of late, I've been practicing a lot of tool age rushing, and if you didn't notice, a lot of these civilizations, well, a lot of the civilizations that I talked about here, I don't really notice many of their buffs in the early game, and since the early game has been my domain as of late, since I've been practicing it, I just haven't really been thinking more long term about a lot of these civs. I have played a lot of these civs in the more long term game though, and so I, after a bit of research and stuff, I was able to compile these lists. But it was a challenge. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, then please do subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Later, nerds.